Hello, welcome back. You're here with Spotlight here on Riverside Radio. With me, Sian, here till 9 p.m. And I'm just on my own this week as Joe and Sarah are away, as I said, doing sort of dramatic things. Sarah's on holiday, Joe's looking after some dogs. So after the adverts, you just heard Corner of the Sky from Pippin. And I'm now hopefully joined by Laurence Owen, who is the creator and actor of Some Other Mirror. Hi, Laurie.
Hi.
Hello. Now, you are part of the Lambeth Fringe, aren't you, this year?
Yep.
Yep. And what is Some Other Mirror about?
So Some Other Mirror is a solo show that I've written and I've been performing in for about 3 years. It started as a university project. And it's a show about my journey coming out as a trans man. And then it's kind of evolved into a story that's more generally about masculinity and finding your place in the world as a man.
And what, obviously, your own experiences have kind of created this. How have you found putting your story down and then presenting it to people?
It's quite scary in a lot of ways, and but I kind of wrote the piece because I just couldn't see any stories like mine in visual media. I particularly remember actually when I just come out as trans. I was like searching everywhere for other stories like mine. I watched the first series of the chilling adventures of Sabrina, which is a great show. Yeah. And it has a great trans character in it who discovers he's trans over the course of the first series. But my main issue with it was that they established quite early on that this trans character, he can talk to ghosts, which is quite cool. And then that happens once, and then he spends the rest of the show kind of being upset about being trans. And I was like, okay, maybe he could be upset about being trans and also speak to ghosts a bit more. That would be more interesting for me.
Did you feel that kind of the Hollywood machine kind of dumbed down that side of the story?
A little bit. I mean, it's as far as trans representation goes, it's quite good, really. But I think I just wanted something that was a bit more complex and that was a bit more advanced than just the coming out story. And that's kind of the plot, as it were, of my show kind of starts just after the central character has come out as trans, and the show it takes a number of different forms as the show goes on, and it starts out as a kind of I'm playing multiple versions of myself on stage at the same time, so I'm kind of like dashing about the stage.
Wow.
Acting as different versions of myself. One of them's a young version of myself, and one of them's an older version of myself. And then there's a third character who kind of represents a different part of my personality. So that's kind of the form of
That sounds really interesting. How have you managed to kind of move from each character? Do you have a kind of transition? Do you change costume? How do you do that? Sounds really complex.
So it's mainly through voice and movement.
Physicality.
Yes. So I kind of I sort of like change posture very quickly, and I also kind of act as though there's two people in the space, and then I'm kind of inhabiting those two different like places on the stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
The show actually started out as a digital show where I pre-recorded footage of the other characters, and then I performed the show on Zoom, and I would play the footage of the other person as though they were another person on the Zoom call with me, and then I would live perform the other half of the dialogue, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. I do not have the technical abilities to actually do that myself, but that sounds incredible. So what made you decide to take off from Zoom and then put it into an actual theatre space?
So I'd never made the show if it wasn't for the pandemic, really, because I
think a lot of good stuff has come out because of the pandemic, because we had time to think.
Yeah, absolutely. But also I was doing the third year of my theatre degree during 2020 to 2021. And so I went to the University of Leeds, who have an incredible drama course, and they really pulled out all the stops to give us the best experience of our third year of of our theatre degree despite COVID circumstances. And one of the things they did was they allowed us to submit different types of assessments than live performance. So I made a Zoom show, as a couple of other people did.
That's so forward thinking, isn't it? How brilliant.
Because actually, what inspired me was that I'm from I have a sort of traditional theatre background, but I'm also part of the improv scene. I've actually just done a show and also some work at the Robin Hood International Improv Festival.
Oh wow!
But what was happening was when the pandemic sort of hit so suddenly, all the improvisers, like doing comedy improv, they all just like immediately took to Zoom and to online spaces and started experimenting theatrically, really like en masse and in a very practical way. And it really, I noticed that the sort of traditional theatre world took a lot longer to catch up. And so a lot of when I made the first version of the show on Zoom, a lot of my inspiration was really from what improvisers were doing rather than what the actors and the directors from the more traditional backgrounds were doing.
Well, you improv guys are very fast on your feet, though, aren't you?
Yeah, you kind of have to be. But it's what also improv gives you a different way of being creative in a lot of ways.
It's incredible. So you said you've been kind of performing it for 3 years. Where were you before you came to the Lambeth Fringe? Have you kind of done other festivals?
So the last time I performed this was in I did Edinburgh Fringe in 2022. I did a week there, and then I did a couple of performances in Nottingham, which is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so that was the last time I performed it. And so each time I perform the show, I add some extra content.
That was going to be my next question. How has it changed? Has it morphed? Has it grown?
Yeah, so it's kind of evolved into, it's now a 3-part show pretty much, because it started as a 20-minute university exam piece, basically, because 20 minutes was the limit on the amount of content I could do.
Yeah.
And then that kind of came to a natural end point. And then when I adapted it for in person, like an in-person stage, I had moved forward in my journey from when I'd originally written the show, and so I wanted to add more content and improve the previous section, because more stuff had happened to me just in terms of life experience, but also I'd become a bit of a better writer, a bit of a better performer. And then with this third iteration, I'd say the same thing has happened again. I've had a bit more life experience, and I've gone back and I've slightly changed the first and second parts, and then the third part of the show is new, and the third part of the show is about how when you transition, you change as a person, but also your friendships and relationships with other people change as well. And the way that people see you, if you take a path like mine, where you go a long period of your life presenting as female, being treated that way, and then presenting male, and slowly people come to regard you as male. You have some people who've never met you from the before time, and then you have other friends who did know you in the before time. And so the third part of the show is, sort of navigating that sort of change of social cues and expectations. And I sort of focus on friendships and relationships between men, male sort of relationships.
Oh, sounds fascinating. And how long is the play now? It's gone from 20 minutes, is it now an hour?
Yes, it's about an hour now, which is terrifying to have an hour of text in my head, including songs and bits of audience interaction.
Oh gosh!
But also that's kind of why it's taken 3 years, because so my day job is not in theatre. I'm an administrator at the School of Maths at the Uni of Nottingham, and so the rehearsal process, I'm not in a position where I can just be like, oh, I'm going to take 3 months off and rehearse this 1 hour show and then do it. I can't do that. Like, if I tried to do that, I would probably give myself a nervous breakdown. And so, and actually Joe Strickland is brilliant at sort of adapting artistic processes for the artists that they work with Chronic Insanity, who have produced the show.
Joe's the director, is he?
Yes. Yeah. So Joe, whose pronouns are they, them. Joe Strickland is the director and the producer of the show.
Amazing. So you have to tell us the dates that this is on. Obviously, we know we can get the tickets at the Lambeth Fringe website. So when are you going to be putting this show on?
So it's on for 2 nights only, on the 7th and the 8th of October from 7 p.m. And as I said, it's an hour. So it's early in the week, but it's only an hour. Great night out. And tickets are, so the full price of tickets are £15 and then concessions are £10.
Fantastic. And it's a one-person show?
Yes, it is.
Lot of pressure on yourself.
I did the Fringe, and the Fringe show went down very well. There's lots of reviews that you can read on my website and on my socials.
Yeah, you've got lots of really good, fantastic reviews.
So I'm very proud of this show, and I also love the conversations that I get to have with people after the show. And something that's very special to me is I get completely different reactions to the show from trans people than I do from cis people. And the two sort of and the show is very accessible for. I've deliberately made it so it is accessible for people who know nothing about trans issues. Maybe you've heard a bit about it on the news, but you haven't really looked into it. This show is for you. But also, if you're a trans person, it's not going to be like Cis People 101 where I have to explain a bunch of stuff you already know. I've tried really hard, and I've been told that this show is both relatable for trans people, but also not so esoteric that cis people can't kind of get on board and relate to it as well.
It's accessible for all, and that's what it should be. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Laurie. It sounds fantastic, actually, and I'm so pleased you're so proud of it, as you should be. We're going to have a bit more music. We're going to have Seasons of Love from Rent. Thank you for coming and joining me.
Thank you.
Spotlight with Sean, Joe and Sarah
on Riverside Radio.
Love in Southwest London.